Jaw-dropping allegations made against the Chinese government by a California woman who says the communists have held her sister's body in a morgue for almost 20 years after she was allegedly tortured and killed inside of a labor camp for her beliefs.
Well, now Fox 11 has obtained exclusive undercover video from inside those labor camps. Bill Maluzhin joins us live with this exclusive investigation. It's something you've been working on for some time.
Quite some time, guys, and the video we're about to show tonight has never been seen before, much of it, but you're going to see it for the first time here tonight. The people who filmed the video and provide it to us literally put their lives on the line just to smuggle it out of China. The video shows what the Chinese government has allegedly been doing to their political prisoners in the shadows for almost 2 decades now. And we do want to warn our viewers, much of what you're about to see tonight is very graphic and very tough to watch. A sobbing wife mourns her husband's final moments after he was left in a vegetative state and shackled to his hospital bed following his alleged torture in a Chinese labor camp. He's one of thousands imprisoned for their beliefs. Some left emaciated, others with rotted and blistering skin, allegedly tortured and beaten. Now, Fox 11 is being taken inside those Chinese labor camps with undercover footage never seen before, revealing what life is like for political prisoners, filmed by those willing to risk everything. If the government knew I filmed those videos, I wouldn't be here with you. My life would be gone. And one distraught California family is fighting back. They say their loved one was tortured and killed in a Chinese labor camp almost 20 years ago. Her body still being held by the camp to this day, and they're going directly to the source to get it back.
My name is Yifei Wang. The party wants us to forget about my sister, about my brother, and all the others.
The family's ordeal, now the subject of a soon-to-be-released explosive documentary.
We have undercover footage that they have really taken great risks to get out of China, and this is something that you don't see every day.
In 1999, the Chinese government ordered the eradication of the spiritual meditation practice known as Falun Gong, calling it a heretic organization that threatens social stability. The government began arresting and imprisoning hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and shipped them to labor camps where they were set to be re-educated. This was the scene in Tiananmen Square in 2001 as the Chinese government arrested hundreds of Falun Gong supporters. Yifei Wang was there with her sister that day. They were holding signs in support of Falun Gong. Both were arrested, separated, and imprisoned. Yifei was eventually released thanks to a sympathetic guard, but her sister Kafei never made it out. After 4 months spent in a Chinese labor camp, her family was told Kafei died of a heart attack. But after seeing her condition at the hospital, they allege she was tortured to death. And almost 20 years later, they believe her body is still being held by the labor camp. In 2015, Yifei's husband Gordon traveled to China and visited the women's labor camp where Kafei died. He filmed undercover video and waited an hour and a half to meet with the new labor camp director. The family ended up leaving the camp empty-handed, but Gordon tells Fox 11 he will never stop trying. I wanted to get the truth out about Kafei's death, and I wanted to get her body released. The ordeal has been a burden on Yifei and the family over the years. At the mention of her sister, she becomes emotional as she reminisces. I can't even think about her, because when I do, It always breaks my heart. I think about when we were young and would play together. She was a brilliant girl. Ming Yu is a friend of the family. He was also in prison for supporting Falun Gong. I was a very successful businessman. I had a clothing factory. I employed over 100 people, but after the persecution began, I lost my business. Yu tells Fox 11 he was able to shoot this undercover video at a labor camp he was imprisoned at by bribing a guard. He says he filmed it at the notorious labor camp during the 2008 Beijing Olympics, alleging it shows Falun Gong practitioners being forced to work extremely long hours to make products sold all over the world. He says the workers were given no breaks, and some were so exhausted they fell asleep under the very tables they were working on. He also filmed this video of a Falun Gong practitioner who he says was severely injured by guards at the camp. You can see he's shackled to his bed and underweight with lesions on his skin. If you're ever caught doing this kind of thing, videotaping the details of what's happening in these camps, you would lose your life. The Chinese Communist Party has a quota of people to be killed, and I am one of them. But these weren't the only videos Yu smuggled out of China. Using hidden cameras designed as different products, including car keys and a watch, he says he filmed this video of a dying man on his hospital bed. This is what he looked like before his incarceration for supporting Falun Gong. Yu says he was beaten and tortured in captivity. He died in a vegetative state, shackled to his bed. Kay Rubicek is a producer with Swoop Films. They're making a documentary called Finding Courage, which documents the government persecution of Falun Gong and the family's struggle to get Kafei's body back.
Not someone who died naturally of a heart attack. We're talking about brutal torture. And what for? For standing up for freedom of belief, something we take for granted.
Here in Los Angeles, local Falun Gong practitioners rallied to call for the end of the persecution, some of them holding photos of those who are dead or imprisoned at the hands of the Chinese government. And this was the scene in New York City last week, where nearly 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners marched to also call for an end to the persecution. Some held signs saying "Free Sister's Body," a reference to the remains of Kafei Wang.
A heart attack on a 30-year-old woman is, of course, the typical lie you get from totalitarian regimes.
Sean Steele serves as Republican National Committeeman of California. His wife is Orange County Supervisor Michelle Steele, whose family fled their own brutal regime in North Korea.
If we're talking about China, talking about them being an adversary for the 21st century, we got to talk about their human rights record.
And according to Amnesty International, that record is amongst the worst.
Amnesty International has documented severe and widespread human rights violations against Falun Gong practitioners. We have documented cases of torture, inhumane practices, lack of freedom of expression.
Your reaction to the video we just showed you for this story?
It's unbelievable. It's almost too much for television, but it's such an important story because there's millions of people involved, but it's also personal. It's Los Angeles, it's California. It's what people in this state have been living with for years, and finally the story's getting out. If we put a spotlight on it, it might actually help save the lives of many, many people we don't even know.
And Sean Steele says he is a hardcore human rights advocate, and he went on to tell us that he does plan to make the Trump administration aware of the ongoing persecution of Falun Gong in China, as well as the ongoing situation with Kafei Wang's body. Now, he also told us he will be making a presentation on this specific subject at the Republican National Committee next spring. We did reach out to the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. for a comment in response to this story, but as of tonight, we have not heard back from them. Guys?
And Sean Steele is in communication with the president himself.
Yep.
Falun Gong, a lot of our viewers probably have never heard of this before.
I'd never heard of it before.
What is it about it that is, one, so scary for China, and two, so great that these people are risking everything to practice it?
So there are tens of millions of Falun Gong practitioners in China. What is it exactly? You saw the people kind of doing the stretches. It's basically spiritual meditating and a sense of bettering yourself through spirituality. And why does the Chinese government have a problem with it? Again, there are tens of millions of them. They're very well organized. They've held protests before because of these crackdowns, and the government doesn't like that. They see it as a threat to their power, even going so far as to call it a menace to society. So it's really just, they're threatened by them. There's so many of them. At one point, years ago, they actually outnumbered the Communist Party.
So for the family of the sister, they want her body back because it's been almost 20 years.
Yeah, you would think, you know, what do they expect to get if they do get the body back?
Yeah.
What they're hoping to do is have a formal funeral for her, and more importantly, they want an autopsy. Again, the camp told her, or they told the family that she died of a heart attack at around 30 years old. The family doesn't believe that. They saw her at the hospital. They want an autopsy. They want to check for blunt force trauma on her bones, that sort of thing.
Eye-opening reporting. Bill
Well, I'll
Malugin,
say.
thank you very much.
All right, Bill.